Okay, he's not moving. He ain't going nowhere.
Dude, I don't.
You better hurry up and get an ambulance now.
Oh my gosh! Hey, did you already tell them, Alan?
Yeah,
Did you
tell him he shot? He's dead. He's shot.
He's gone. He's dead.
Dude, he's about ready to die.
Yeah, I don't know if I can just casually walk over someone's dead body like that. Either way, here's the details of why this happened and what went down. So James Rail is 22 years old. He was shot those 3 times by Mitchell Duckrow, who's 52 years old, after he showed up unannounced to this home at the end of July. Earlier this month, a Shelby County grand jury voted 8-1 against indicting Duckrow on charges related to his killing, citing the state's stand your ground law, which says that a homeowner does not have a legal duty to retreat from their home before firing a gun. As you also heard Duckrow talking about, I have a gun, get off my porch. All those things were happening, you heard on audio. Rail had dated Duckrow's daughter, Allison, who's also 22, previously, but the pair broke up a year and a half before this tragic incident. Rail left his ex-girlfriend a voicemail the night before the shooting saying he wanted to see how she was doing. And then that's when he showed up the next day. Rail, James, the victim there, his sister did post that voicemail to point out just how non-intimidating it was. We don't have time to play it, but you guys can also check that out because she's all over her Facebook trying to point things out. Their family's out there. Let's go down to this graphic that they have there, graphic 6, you guys. They're standing out in front of the authorities and the police locations, protesting, trying to get some kind of attention for what happened. Also, his sister's name is Jessica Marie Colbert, and she posted some speculation about the reasons why this may have happened in her other Facebook post. She said the world's waiting to see is seeing your name. She's talking to her brother who's not with us anymore. She goes, while it's not the way I want to be seen, I believe things will align for us in your honor. She points out that the guy has a history of DUI. He had beer bottles lined on the table in his house, beer bottles by his sink, and his wife was carrying a 24-pack of Bud Light that morning, and on and on and on. So now it comes to this whole, and I know where the law is with self-defense and all that, and this guy was busting through the door. Let's keep it real, the camera was there, Ben. But his sister and his family is like, there's something missing here and something else was going on. There was a non-threatening voicemail. He showed up, they dated, they've known each other since forever. And then it ends like this. There's a lot more going on in my opinion here. I just don't know.
Yeah, maybe so, but and maybe the third shot was unnecessary when the guy was turned around. But this, in my opinion, and for all the critics there that say, oh, liberals don't ever want, or they're soft on crime, they don't want guns. I think this killing was totally justified. I'm sorry, somebody tries to bust down my door and breaks the lock and is coming in when I already said I have a gun and he does not retreat. I'm blasting that guy in the face. He's dead. I'm sorry. You don't enter somebody's domicile. That is not acceptable. That is not okay. And that guy got what is coming to him. Sorry.
Yeah, and then when I saw that the whole beginnings of this thing,
found out.
I was like, the whole thing happened with that. And I was like, well, I'm curious what the family thinks. And honestly, that many aspects of what the family's saying, I didn't see a lot of reporting on, because then you think they must be spinning their wheels. There's not much of a justification for this. There was a weird look on his face. I don't know if we can run just the beginning. That's why I kept the beginning of that so much. When he's standing and looking at the door, he looked off. He looked confused, he looked dazed, something else was going on. And maybe there's a history between this guy and the girl that they broke up over. But it seems like there was some tension, and then the shooting was much easier than you would have thought from someone who maybe dated your daughter, but maybe it wasn't ending in a lot of violence or strife or any of that type of stuff. I feel bad for the family, but also I understand what was going on with what happened, and he knew by law he could do something like this. It's just the way these things work. We usually just don't see it on camera, and that's when it gets startling. Killing someone is a serious, real thing, bro. Hope people can notice that more now. I don't know where this is gonna go, but I doubt they're gonna get much of a different answer. That's the answer for today's show, man. It flew by yet again. Ben, thank you again for joining me for another episode here on the watch list. Appreciate you again. The Mad King, check it out on YouTube. You guys, hilarious stuff there from Ben. We'll catch up with you soon, brother. Up next is John Iadarola with The Damage Report. It's a Wednesday. I'll be hanging around even longer. I'll see you guys in a couple minutes. I'll be joining John for another hour and a half. See you guys tomorrow.
As was foretold, it's Big News Wednesday. And both the big news and the good news keeps on giving. Interesting new DOJ filing that we're gonna dive into, revealing some of the actual documents that Donald Trump stole from the White House, as well as a little bit more granular information about how he tried to evade detection. So that's gonna be spicy too. Joining me to discuss, as always, on Big News Wednesday, Jayar Jackson. How's it going? But you're muted. We're full of tech problems today.
No, I'm sorry, I'm all over the place because my camera got shifted. Just from me leaving after my show to come into yours, as long as you guys can hear me, I can sit over here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
It's Big News Wednesday. What's going on, John?
It's the news is going on. Not only those DOJ filings that we talked about, we've got some updates on right wingers who had really big things to say about why you shouldn't be mean to Trump. Now trying to backtrack because it turns out that they were sort of advocating for violence. We're gonna analyze that. Oh, we're gonna be running. Yesterday, I got a chance to talk with Chris Smalls about Amazon unionization as well as the labor movement more broadly. We're gonna be playing that just a little bit later, actually, for our live audience. We got Desantis being made to look like a fool, death threats, Donald Trump looking ridiculous. We got a lot of fun stuff. We've got airdropped nudes coming to you live on the Damage Report and more. So everyone, before all of that, hit the like button, share the stream if you haven't already, and you can send us comments, tweets, super chats, and all that. And Jayar and I will respond as we go. But with all that said, Jayar, are you ready to start the show?
I think so.
Okay. Well, I think you're gonna be familiar with this first story, but let's jump into it. A new filing by the DOJ revealed some of the documents that Donald Trump had stolen from the government and brought to Mar-a-Lago. Let's take a look at this photo, and you're gonna see that the investigators raiding Mar-a-Lago apparently made the weird decision to take some of the documents, and you can see in there a number of different classified documents, and sort of lay them out on the gaudy floor to take a photo of. And that is pretty amazing. So normally what would happen in a situation like this is the FBI would take a photo of the actual documents being taken. So wherever they were being held, in normal places like Trump's desk or a storage closet or something. Or they would take all of the evidence, they would bring it back to wherever it's going to be held, lay it all out and take a photo of it there. Doing it at Mar-a-Lago is an interesting choice, but that's what they did, and they did reveal quite a bit in it. You see documents bearing markings of top secret, sensitive, compartmented information, one of the highest classifications there. You can't actually read the documents. They were smart enough to white those out. But you also get to see, because of their choice, a box of framed items, including a 2019 Time magazine cover depicting the then Democratic presidential field vying to defeat Trump. And I get why Trump would want that. He's a history buff. Wouldn't he want to catalog every step along the way towards the second election where America rejected him? So I appreciate that as an academic myself. And we're gonna have far more coming out of this, including the more damning information about obstruction. But I wanna be fair to Donald Trump for some reason and give you his response to these pictures coming out. He truthed, "Terrible the way the FBI during the raid of Mar-a-Lago threw documents haphazardly all over the floor, perhaps pretending it was me that did it, and then started taking pictures of them for the public to see. Thought they wanted to keep them capital S secret. Lucky I, capital D, declassified." And so he's a very witty, quick guy, because if you declare that you've declassified on Truth Social months and months after stealing the documents, then that's legit. That is actually no, that's not at all. You can't just say that. Man, he could have honestly tried to do it. Like, if he really wanted to have these documents, he could have tried to go through the actual procedure to declassify them. And maybe he would have avoided some of the trouble. Not all of it, of course, because many of those documents he stole from the government, he cannot declassify. It is not up to him to do so. Never forget that. But he was so lazy. It's the combination of corruption and laziness that is so unique to Donald Trump, really biting him in the ass now, Jayar.
Absolutely, this is the thing. Donald Trump was asking for all this extra information. He was asking for the affidavit to be revealed. He was asking for the search warrant to be revealed. He was asking for the special person to come in and do all this stuff. And he keeps getting more information revealed, and he keeps being unhappy about that information being revealed. I'm not sure if he understands this, but there's this guy. Someone should tell Donald Trump. This guy, his name is Donald, and he's been sabotaging you consistently over and over again. So yeah, and also he's perhaps pretending that I had strewn all of these documents all over the floor, as if that's an irresponsible thing. Because in reality, if you pay attention, you guys, is what Trump was trying to tell his supporters. I didn't throw those things all over the floor. I just had them in an unlocked closet. I just had them in my desk. Only had them in the bathroom on the shelf. That's all, not on the floor. Yeah. Please.
Yeah, so I don't know if you are big on procedurals, but sometimes I'll watch those shows where like detectives will like try to track down someone who did like a big bank robbery or something, and they'll show up to the guy's place and they'll find a bunch of money. But if it wasn't strewn about on the floor, then was it really a crime? I mean, sure, he stole millions, but he had it neatly piled with little elastic bands around each one. It was so organized that it would seem gauche to lock him up. No, although I didn't care enough about this to actually pull the tweets, but there's one of these like nut job commentators that loves Trump who was like, they're giving the agreeing with Trump, they're giving the impression that he kept them on the floor. Dude, that's not what they're doing, and nobody cares. Get a better narrative, seriously. And honestly, there's a better narrative waiting. There's nothing in his truth that says anything about the documents that you saw there was wrong, except that they were on the floor. He definitely had them, he took them, and you can see on them They say secret, NCI, compartmented. Like, so he's admitting it. You can't have those. That is a crime. It is in fact many crimes. You can count the pieces of paper if you'd like to figure out how many crimes, but they have a better defense. It's a lie, but it's better. And you might recall they were running with it initially. Christina Bobb, the crazy Trump lawyer, was early on, this is August 9th, suggesting that the FBI may have planted evidence in Mar-a-Lago. Trump initially was sort of running with that a bit. The right loved this idea because it's non-falsifiable. You could just say that they planted it and there's literally no way to prove that they haven't. And it is sort of plausible because the FBI historically is really bad. So why not just say that all the documents on the floor, I never saw those. Those weren't my documents. Those are big fraudulent dumps. Instead, they're admitting to it. They have just admitted to the crime.
They don't know how not to. You know why? Because Christina Bobb is, you guys should know this. I think everybody knows this. She was an OAN host before she was Trump's attorney because no one else will work for him because he doesn't pay anyone. And also he screws people over. Let's keep it real. So yeah, things are strewn across the floor, and then this is not how things usually work. I'm not sure what the end game is. I keep wondering. People call Donald Trump a mobster. He runs his whole life like he's a mob king. Mobsters had plans. Mobsters had ways to evade the law. Mobsters would hide things. Mobsters are like, hey, they're coming for me. Donald Trump was surprised that they came back after Christina Bobb signed this document saying that we gave you guys all of the information and all of the documents that we weren't supposed to have here in the first place. And then there was more there.
Yeah.
What was the plan after that? They're gonna go, oh, my bad. I think we forgot about the most top secret documents of the entire United States secrets. We just forgot about them. They're in your drawer, but it was just our bad. That was the plan? That was this mob king's plan? Bro, Gotti is really upset with you over this.
When they're sending the mob, they're not sending the best. But anyway, but there's so many other aspects of this we gotta get into. I understand why people are focusing on the fact that the DOJ has revealed those photos of all the documents Trump stole, the top secret stuff spread out. That is bad. It's evidence of a crime. But honestly, some of what came out in this filing, which by the way, the DOJ filing didn't need to come. It was in response to Donald Trump trying to get this special master, which he doesn't seem like he's gonna get, and taking forever to do the filing. So most of the document analysis had already happened. They're just the worst. But some of what was revealed, I think might even be more significant because it goes to not just that he committed the crime, but that he knew what he was doing was a crime, which for some reason with rich people is the most important part of a crime. We just get done. If you do the crime, you go to jail. For them, it's all about what's in their mind. So the DOJ said in its filing that it is, quote, evidence that government records were likely concealed and removed from the storage room, the like closet that's come up so much, and that efforts were likely taken to obstruct the government's investigation. They say that the FBI, in a matter of hours, recovered twice as many documents with classification markings as the, quote, diligent search that the former president's counsel and other representatives had weeks to perform, calls into serious question the representations made in the June 3rd certification and casts doubt on the extent of cooperation in this matter. So what they're saying is they said they'd cooperated. They clearly didn't. They said they went through all these documents. It says classified in huge letters. You can't miss that. So they clearly were lying. They were not cooperating. That gets to motivation, as well as that some of the documents they found weren't in the storage closet anymore, implying that they had been identified during that search and were then taken out and put somewhere else, which gets to an active attempt to obstruct the investigation. None of this should be necessary. Let's be clear about that. He already committed the crime hundreds of times over. We already know that. We're done with that. We're moving on. But on top of it, he clearly was in the know about the fact that it was a crime, that he was continuing to commit crimes, and was trying to make it impossible for the investigation to catch him. This should be drop the balloons, we got him. Can we wrap this thing up, JR?
It's so simple, right? Open and shut. It doesn't get any easier than this, right? I guess they want to make sure that all those MAGA folks that Lindsey Graham wants to go riot will have nothing else to complain about. Maybe that's the only thing left here, because by the way, there was one line in that whole thing when they're talking about the diligent search that his representatives and his counsel conducted in between the two first requests for the documents and then the eventual search and seizure of those documents. They said that they couldn't produce those, but there was that diligent search. Why are you searching for something like this important in someone's residence? Who does know where it is? Who brought it in? Why do you have to search for something in your house? John, if you've got 12 highly classified documents in your house somewhere, do you think your wife has to go, well, I gotta go search for them because I have no idea?
They could be anywhere.
Do you think she might say, hey, John, they're looking for some documents that you brought. Maybe you can tell me where they are. Instead, it's a search. Why is it a search? It should be somewhere. And in fact, the FBI agents came back later and searched and found them. But the people closest to him couldn't find them, or they didn't want to find them.
Yeah, so let me demonstrate how ridiculous it is. So saying I searched and I couldn't find it and it turns out it was in your desk is the equivalent of like, where are my glasses? I just can't seem to find my glasses. Oh, whoops, senior moment. That's what happened, except with classified sensitive documents of national importance. Okay, now we obviously think that this is serious. What if a right winger thought it was serious though? Let's jump into this. Coming out of the DOJ's filing that reveals all these documents that Donald Trump stole, I wasn't necessarily expecting that Fox and Friends would come down on the side of this being seriously bad for him. But take a look at this video of Steve Doocy.
Keep in mind, according to the filing, the agents found 3 classified documents in Donald Trump's desks. What were they doing in the desk? And these are the biggest secrets in the world. If we have heard that Donald Trump's lawyers went through all the stuff, but how could you go and look at that and not think, you know what, that's probably something I should turn back over?
Those are some good questions, Steve Doocy. I agree. Now, almost immediately after that, the others, especially in this case, Ainsley Earhart, jumped into like, no, but he said that he declassified it. And I know that we've known for a long time that many of the documents he couldn't declassify. And even if he was going to, he had to do actual documentation. He can't just cross his arms and like wriggle his nose. That's not how it works. She knows that, but she's lying for him. But despite that, Steve Doocy then doubles down and hamstrings the argument that Ainsley Earhart had been trying to make in this clip.
Well, ultimately, it comes down to why did he have all that secret stuff at Mar-a-Lago? I know his team has said that they declassified it, but that's news to the agencies that those documents belong to.
News to the agencies. It was news to apparently everybody following Donald Trump just deciding after the fact that he had declassified those things, JR.
It's amazing. Doocy, like, it's one of those things. Remember, I always say, I tell everyone, if you're getting some kind of political discussion with someone and disagree with you, just ask them to explain the next step. Oh my God, whoever, President Obama was doing this, this, and that. Or really, why? It's who, what, when, where, and why. And then how? How did he do it? Why did he do it? When did he do it? What for? What's the end game? Because they have to have, since they're telling you how everything works, they should have that answer. Steve Doocy is simple-minded enough. He's like, but then why would he have it there? It's a simple question that they won't answer because there's a really easy answer, because he was stealing them. But the answer they just don't want to reveal. Why did he have them? When did he have them there? Who knew about it? All these simple questions Steve Doocy now has to ask.
Yeah.
And for some reason, other folks that also know those answers just don't want to ask those questions either. It's just how these things work. I'm glad he's asking the burning questions.
Totally, yeah. No, he's doing it again. Look, it happens every once in a while. Maybe 4 or 5 times a year, Steve Doocy says something reasonable. And look, to be fair, the only reason he can do it is that I guess he's not 100% in love with Donald Trump. That frees him up to say things that are just common sense at this point. And sometimes the others, Kilmeade every once in a while will say something sort of critical, but I feel like he's a little bit more in the tank for Trump, so he has that sort of knee-jerk need to defend him. But when you're freed up, you can acknowledge reality. So for instance, the Drudge Report, which still exists, I checked, they had this on their front page as this news was coming out.
Jesus, man. The neck morphing on this shot is pretty good.
Yeah, that's well done. Well, good as in like how, maybe the special effects in a good horror movie are good. Like that is what a fully burned corpse would look like. Yes, you did a bang up job. But anyway, I bet Donald Trump, if he had to take one of the two, would choose the orange jumpsuit over whatever that neck is supposed to be. But good job there, Drudge. Anyway, look, I don't think that this is the dam breaking. You'll probably hear people say like, oh God, the right is finally, the walls are closing to something. You hear that a lot, and I don't expect at this point it will ever come. but having some be willing to acknowledge indisputable facts, that's something, and I will take it. Thank you, Steve Doocy.
Yeah, that's my last thought on this. To folks who are still supporting, regular folks who are still supporting Donald Trump, that weren't in the administration, that have nothing to benefit from it, that aren't about to be up for some kind of legal issue, and now you're protecting your own ass, whatever it is. What's the worst thing that can happen if the Republican Party distances themselves completely instead of like in partial ways like this and says Donald Trump apparently is a criminal and we're not like him? What happens? They lose the MAGA base. That's who they lose. Those folks, the rabid racists, the folks that are into violence, that are looking to overturn elections, that are fascists. Those are the people that you lose.
Yeah.
If you think you lose that and you can never win again, that says a lot about who you are.
Yeah.
And they refuse to leave them.
Yes. I think you're right. Who you are, but also who you think your base is, or who you think you need your base to be, I guess. Okay, let's jump from one side of this power couple to the other. Melania Trump has been notably silent as more and more evidence has come out that her husband Donald committed so many crimes. Now, she did come up initially in the story. You might recall, following the raid, Trump put out a message saying, "Just learned that agents went through the First Lady's closets and rummaged through her clothing and personal items. Surprisingly, left area in a relative mess. Wow." I don't know what the relative mess thing means. Is that him implying that she normally has it pretty messy, but this is relatively more messy? Or does he mean that they didn't really make much of a mess relative to normal? Either way, it's weird. Debate amongst yourselves. But he was angry about this, clearly, about the raid and even about them going through her stuff. She, according to 5 different people who spoke to CNN, has really tried to not talk about this, to not get drawn in personally. And there's a few reasons for that, and every one of them is interesting. Here is a quote about her response, not her vocal response, that didn't really exist, but what she was thinking. She cared, but not like he cared. It annoyed her. This is an FBI raid of your home, or supposedly your home, supposedly the place you're supposed to live. They note that it was her invasion of privacy that prompted her to get upset, not the nature of the investigation that sparked the search, or what it meant or might possibly come to mean legally for her husband. So, all told, doesn't really care, not that interested. But to the extent that she does care, it's that they went through her slacks, not that her husband might get locked up over it or might have details about nuclear defense. That's an interesting little mini hill in this scandal to choose to not even really die on, but like be mildly peeved on.
Man, we might find out who the mole is, because she does not care. But also, who knows how close she could have been to all this stuff. She probably distanced herself because she knows how much of a criminal her husband is. And she's like, I'm just gonna kind of not know. Really fast, I was watching this Tim Donaghy doc, this Untold, it was on Netflix, this Untold documentary about Tim Donaghy, who was a former NBA ref. And he was doing point stuff, and he was betting on his games, that he was refereeing, all that stuff. He got busted by the FBI. And his wife was like, I had some suspicion something was happening, but I just didn't want to know. So I just stayed away. And I told him, if you're doing something, Timmy, you probably shouldn't do it. And that's all. I feel like she probably took the route that also Melania was taking. She's like, Donnie, I feel like you're up to something, and I'm just gonna stay in my quarters over here and make sure that none of your fingers touch my clothes, and also none of your documents get near my jumpsuits, because your orange ones over there are definitely gonna be needed later.
Well, and she was apparently pretty confident about that. She apparently was certain that nothing of his would ever be found in her closet or even in her bedroom. Man, 2 words, her bedroom, so much meaning. It's only a few syllables, a handful of letters. Her bedroom. Anyway, she would never allow him to keep his stuff in her room, and he would frankly never ask, says one of the people. Damn. That's not even that weird. My wife has a closet. I feel no need to put anything in there. But I know that if I did, it's not like she'd get mad. Nor would she have the grounds to be, because she's taken so much of my clothing that if an extra piece of clothing ended up in there, she was gonna steal it anyway. I'm just getting ahead of the curve, but she apparently has always considered what Donald does to be separate from her. Decisions he makes about his business are his decisions, not hers. And I guess, look, inside of a couple, those are the sorts of choices that you can make. It's just the distance is so far, geographic, like emotional. There's so much distance there. I don't know if she would be the mole, just because to be a mole seems to require some sort of emotional investment. And I don't even think she can get worked up enough to betray him.
Yeah, I said this before earlier this morning. Remember when he first got into office and then suddenly Melania was staying in New York? It was like, she's not going with him to DC. She was there for months at first. And then finally people were ridiculing them so much. She's like, damn it. I thought I could get away with staying away from this guy. The best thing about him winning this election was that I don't have to be around his ass anymore. This continues to get illustrated over and over and over again with their relationship, which again, that's their personal business. But when it comes to then you got documents in the house, maybe it's good that she distanced herself, or maybe she didn't. I don't know. Again, we still haven't found the rat, as Trump and his associates have been calling it.
Yeah.
More speculation.
Well, and the speculation continues. For now, though, we are going to take our first break. When we come back, Biden called Donald Trump and his movement semi-fascist, and the level of crying from the right has been epic. And we're going to dive into one of the best examples of it after this. Okay, everybody, I've seen some amazing comments that need to be acknowledged, including coming out of that photo of the Drudge with Trump in his neck. Vergy Verg says Trump has a rickety cricket transformation. I don't know, are you a Sunny fan, Jayar?
I've seen.
Always Sunny.
Actually, I saw one episode of Sunny and it was extremely funny. And I never watched it again.
It's
I don't know
a
what's
very
wrong
funny
with it.
show. Anyway, great reference there.
Yeah.
Let's see. Dissident PM says, a shame the FBI made grease rings by setting down their KFC buckets on my documents. It was their buckets. I don't even buy them. I don't even really like it. God. Like I'm one to talk. I ruined my first TYT bomber eating while driving. Just spilled all this food and didn't clean it fast enough. So honestly, I'm at least as disgusting as Donald Trump.
What was the food, John? You have to reveal the full story. Was this?
It was something
burgers?
Saucy. I think it was a sandwich, but like a saucy sandwich. It was not a good call.
Meatball sandwiches in the car.
It was something like a meatball sandwich or something. Just pull over and enjoy your sandwich,
bro.
Anyway, and I ran over multiple people. It was just not a good call. I should have pulled over. Anyway, Travel Nurse Dragon says in the member comments, I know JR likes to say Monday is the best day of the week, but I argue 2.5 hours of JR makes Wednesday the best day of the week.
Damn. It's almost like there should be like a daily show with both of us on it or something.
It maybe should be. Usually we make jokes like that for like 6 weeks in advance of something actually happening that we know is gonna happen. That's not what's going on right now. Anyways, like when before your show started, I was making jokes for weeks and weeks. Anyway,
if you guys go back, you may see my eyes go like this while Jank did it blatantly one time, and I was like,
oh really? Awkward. Strategic Diversity Dragon says, had Trump not forced the FBI to give more information over and over again, I'm not sure the weak Democrats would have prosecuted him. Now that everyone knows how criminal this is, it will be hard to avoid prosecution. Well, they are still very weak, so I think that they can find a way. I am by no means feeling sure at this point that he's gonna face it, but I also can't lie to you. Like, it's bad. It's a lot has come out, and I'm still a cynic, but I don't know, I can almost see the light at the end of the tunnel, and it's one of the big searchlights mounted outside of a prison, I think. Anyway, Gabby says, does Donald Trump think that declassifying secret documents works the same way that Michael Scott thinks declaring bankruptcy works? I declare declassification! He wouldn't even do that. He's too lazy to scream. You heard it here first, Donald Trump, not a screamer. Okay, Utter Bullspit sent in a super chat saying, I love JR's political commentary and definitely love his style. He's so fly and attractive to boot, and then there's a sad face like it's physically hurting them.
Wow. You know what the Dodgers hat does? The Dodgers hat definitely brings that out. They're winners. They're winners.
They're winners. You want to get affiliated with a winner.
That does a lot for my ego. I'm gonna walk around and just like look at people all day and be like,
sounds good. Yeah, you want to start something? I got a hat. Anyway, Less Than Lucid's been a member for 2 months over on YouTube. Thank you to all of our members. Says Mission Impossible Mar-a-Lago. Walk in, grab docs, walk out. Exactly. It's not that complicated. Joe Willis says, bad news, my time watching live is coming to an end. Good news is because I'm finally getting a new job. Gonna miss my daily hangs with Dragon Squad. I've loved this community since March 2020. It sucks to see you go, but it's great to see you go to a great new job. I hope you enjoy it, and hopefully we'll see you at some point. Okay, with that, we've got a lot of fun news to get to, so let's get ready for this. Ever since Joe Biden referred to the right as semi-fascist, they've been performatively pretending to be offended by that weak sauce comment. And the best example, I think, is Mark Levin. He is going to take the I don't like it and turn it up to like 15. Take a look at this.
The dehumanization of your opponents, which is extraordinarily dangerous. This is what regimes do, totalitarian regimes. They dehumanize their opponents. This is what Biden, again, a street thug, sleazeball politician. That's all he's ever been. It's all he's ever will be. If you're a semi-fascist, you've been dehumanized.
I'm not a human anymore. Because he didn't call you a cockroach. He didn't call you a rat. He didn't call you a virus or a bacteria. There are things people can say about their political enemies that are dehumanizing. You can probably hear them on a regular basis on the Mark Levin show. But semi-fascist from noted street thug Joe Biden, that's not one of them. Like the Marky doth protest too much, but he's gonna go even beyond that. It's not just dehumanizing. Joe Biden is following in a long distinguished line of genocidal dictators. Listen to this.
And all this targeting of Trump is, again, to send a signal. Dehumanization is a big deal. And that's what genocidal regimes do. Jews aren't human beings. They're just not. Or at one time, blacks aren't human beings. Some parts of the world, it's still treated that way. They're still treated that way. Or, for the Taliban, women aren't human beings. And so it justifies, in their minds, all kinds of horrendous, inhuman acts.
Yes, because we know if anything bothers the right, it's black people not being treated with respect, women not being treated with respect. They're forced to do all sorts of things. Oh, like what, Mark Levin? Are they forced to give birth against their will? I agree. That's unacceptable. Anyway, he's talking about what's justified by this dehumanizing. No, I'm gonna flip it on you. Being fascist justifies identifying your movement as fascist, and he didn't even do that. He did a half measure, like in many things, Joe Biden. He called you semi-fascist. No, you are fascist. Look, we've had interviews with scholars of fascism. We've been breaking this down for years. And there are all sorts of different ways to categorize and analyze whether a movement is fascist, what overlap it has with historic fascist parties. Maybe we'll do more of that in the near future. But I think Joe Biden is years late on making what seems like a fairly common sense necessary identification, and Mark Levin whining about dehumanizing and genocide and all that isn't gonna distract from the fact that it's an accurate evaluation.
It's crazy. So they don't want to talk about critical race theory in schools, but when it comes to dehumanization, Mark Levin can then point out and then say, oh look, when they dehumanize you, that suddenly they're out to come kill you. We've been making that point for a very long time. As a matter of fact, you know who's dehumanized, as he did point out there, the enslaved folks in America. You notice he didn't want to point out how that was literally the founding of the country. Okay, so was it a genocidal country then when we dehumanized these humans so that we could force them to work, kill, maim, separate, and force them to build the country? Is that dehumanization? I think it was. Are we a genocidal country because of it, Mark? No, they skip by that part, but they actually don't want to teach their kids about that because they might put Anyway, beyond that, Steve King talked about Mexicans that are potentially at the border. They have cantaloupe calves. That's dehumanization of them. They're just drug runners. They're mules. We hear those terms all the time. Also, Trump literally called folks that are migrants animals that are coming to the border. They call Barack and Michelle Obama monkeys and apes. Doesn't sound very human to me. Also, what did Hitler and those Nazis call all those Jewish folks that they absolutely killed? Talk about genocide. They didn't call them humans.
Yeah.
So as we're talking about how Joe Biden called you a semi-fascist, you know what fascists are? They're humans.
Yeah, that is notably not
After
the
all
best
that,
humans.
The only thing on all those lists that all these conservatives like to call folks, the only one that's a human are the fascists. That they're denying and upset about now.
You're 100% right. They routinely call entire groups of people illegals. They're not people. They're not even like a noun. They're just a group of adjectives. They're characterized by the fact that I think they broke the law. That's the only thing you need to know about them. There's no other facts about them. It is so dehumanizing. But they're taking issue with it. They're freaking out about it. So no, tomorrow we're going to evaluate the evidence for Joe Biden's claim. We're going to break it down on the show with Ben Glebe, actually. But let's get ready. Let's jump ahead to graphic 3. I think it's time that we address Lindsey Graham before we get to our awesome interview. It wasn't that long ago, and I am old enough to remember when Lindsey Graham was predicting riots in the streets if Trump is prosecuted. This was Lindsey Graham in his "I'm a big boy, I can make big threats" mode. And he's talking about riots, he's predicting civil war. How dare you come after Donald Trump? And then he got a lot of criticism. Because that's insane. That is encouraging violence. It certainly doesn't seem to have a problem with violence. And so he was criticized, including from Joe Biden. Listen to this.
By the way, no one expects politics to be a patty cake. It sometimes gets mean as hell. But the idea you turn on the television and see senior senators and congressmen saying, if such and such happens, there'll be blood in the street. Where the hell are we?
Well, unfortunately, where we're at is in America. But in America, where Lindsey Graham is doing a bit of backtracking. You know what he said. We played it on the show. We just showed it in that graphic. Take a look at how he tries to explain away the concerns.
Yeah, so what I said Sunday was I reject violence, but I also reject a double standard here. So if they try to prosecute President Trump for mishandling classified information after the Clinton debacle, when she was Secretary of State, people in this country will lose faith in law enforcement.
Okay, lose faith in law enforcement is miles away from riot in the streets. And not only did you not say, I reject violence, but one of the worst things to say is, I reject violence, but, which you did say right there. You didn't say I reject violence a couple days ago. You predicted violence in the streets, but here you said, I reject violence, but something, something, Hillary and Bill. That's bad. You're not really rejecting violence if a little bit of whataboutism is all it takes to get you to a point where I reject it, but you know what? Sometimes it's necessary.
Insanity. Listen, so this is one of those things where I would love to heard how they tried to figure out how to backpedal correctly on this by still not giving up the point that you were trying to make, so the MAGA won't be mad at you, and most importantly, that Donald Trump will not be mad at you for this. It doesn't really work. It just makes people talk about more of the stupid things that you said, by the way. So he starts by what I had said was my bad was this. They're gonna lose faith in law enforcement is his new tweak of his point. They're gonna lose faith in law enforcement. You know who lost faith in law enforcement? All those folks who got to protesting during 2020. In fact, they had lost faith in law enforcement decades before that and been pointing it out over and over and over again. Now Lindsey Graham is concerned about people in America losing faith in law enforcement, but for Donald Trump, not because they're murdering people in the streets, not because they indiscriminately shoot black and brown people at higher rates than anyone else, not because of the incarceration rate and judges and the judicial system and all of it stacked up against certain people. Not because of any of that, because of Donald Trump. And by the way, once people told you how fed up they were with law enforcement and how things need to be different in the country and they took to the streets, you know what Lindsey Graham said? That they're criminals, arrest them. What's wrong with them? Everything that they're grieving about is actually not true. How much does he really care about people losing faith in law enforcement? Or is it just certain people that look a certain way and follow a certain politician? That's his point.
Yeah, it doesn't care
Nice,
if
good
they
point.
lose faith. Yeah, no, they'll lose faith if a rich guy who definitely committed the crimes and definitely knew that he was breaking the law and definitely tried to cover it up, if he suffers any consequences, then they'll lose faith. That's madness. Okay, with that, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna get ready for C Block. We're ready to go? I'm gonna do a little bit of intro here. A little bit of good news in the labor front. That is that American support for labor unions is at the highest point it's been in 57 years. 71% of Americans now approve of labor unions, up from last year's 68%, a nice little jump, and it was getting high anyway. Union support is also up from 64% before the COVID-19 pandemic. It is the highest that has been polled since 1965, and it is not difficult to figure out why that is. There have been a number of almost miraculous victories for the labor movement. There's been some great politicians supporting that movement and amazing activists becoming leaders inside of it. And I was actually lucky enough to talk with one of them yesterday. Chris Small is president of the Amazon Labor Union. We broke down his work against Amazon as well as in a number of other areas. Take a listen to that now.
Thank you for having me, appreciate it.
Glad to have you here. And while we're talking about appreciation, I appreciate what you've been doing for the movement over the past few years in logging some historic wins, notably, of course, against Amazon. One of the biggest corporations in the history of the planet, finally facing this credible labor movement, and already successes there, of course, as has been covered so much. I know we're going to go broader and talk about your work, across the movement, but where does the effort stand when it comes to Amazon right now? Or are we going to be seeing more successful unionizations there?
Absolutely, of course. We started something that's never going to go away. We're going to have campaigns and elections all across the nation, just like Starbucks. We just filed for another election this past week in Albany, upstate. And we're not going to stop there. We're organizing other facilities right now as we speak. And just like Starbucks, we want to be one of the most powerful unions in the country one day. We want to have representation of Amazon workers and protect workers all across the nation.
Yeah, it's obviously needed. I mean, like the nation has learned a lot throughout the pandemic about how mistreated workers at Amazon are. And at the same time, we went into the pandemic with Amazon workers being so necessary for so much economic output. And that's only gotten bigger during the pandemic. There's a case to be made that they are among the most abused workers in terms of what they contribute and what they get in response. So, really want to see that. What I'd like to find out from you is, I know that because some of these efforts have been so high profile, some people might be for the first time learning how these corporations try to stop it from happening, the ways that they try to dissuade workers from organizing. Is there anything that people might not know about that corporations do to try to pressure workers not to unionize, try to hamper it, that sort of thing?
Well, the most alarming thing is that these corporations break the law every day. By firing workers, they're breaking the law on purpose. They know that the NLRB process takes forever. They know that these laws in this country are weak. They take advantage of that and they fire workers. They retaliate against them, especially if they're pro-union. They put a target on them. They demonize workers and they ruin people's lives. Literally, they make sure that you can't get hired at another job because something's on your resume that has workplace violence or something that they have fired you for just because they made up a story. And this is happening with Amazon workers and Starbucks workers. Retaliation seems to be something of the norm for these corporations because they continue to get away with it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, obviously you can attest to the individual retaliation. You have corporations literally shutting down branches. Here in Southern California, there were multiple grocery stores shut down when they started talking about unionization, and the deck is totally stacked against, despite the fact that what they're doing is illegal, it seems impossible to actually have them face any consequences for it. Are there any prospects for changing that, sort of changing the battlefield? How do we get the law to actually be held against these major corporations?
it starts with our elected officials as well. You know, we got to hold them accountable. You know, everybody's screaming out that they're pro-labor, pro-union, but they're not really standing up for workers, and they're not really putting their pen on paper and where their mouth is. You know, it's always, let's stand in solidarity when the movement is buzzing, but behind closed doors, you know, the laws are not being made to protect us. You know, we have to push this administration, especially now that Biden's claiming to be the most pro-union president ever. We have to make sure that he's held accountable to that, you know, and it doesn't start at the top, it starts from the bottom, and it starts with our city officials, our local politicians as well. They have to be on the picket lines, on the front lines. They have to make sure that these corporations are held accountable and put out bills and pass bills that's gonna protect workers immediately.
You know, I was really curious to find out what you thought about these politicians. There's not many, but the ones that do actually show support, that do show up. I wondered, you know, could it be considered sort of a distraction in some cases? But you're saying that it is helpful to have those politicians. Are there any that go beyond just, you know, the words or maybe a photo op? Are there people that you consider to be actual allies to the movement that are in elected office right now?
I mean, yeah, this is a few, but you know, they have to do a lot more. You know, I definitely support Bernie and how Bernie supported us, vice versa. Respect the fact that he's shown up for us on several occasions, and he continued to, you know, to communicate with us and you know, lend that solidarity out whenever we need it. But you know, once again, it's a lot more that not just him, but a lot of politicians, especially on the left, that can be done for these workers, and it hasn't been done yet. And once again, we're running out of time. 2024 is around the corner, and it's still a lot of work to be done. And we don't have that much of a window of opportunity to get it done. So for us as organizers on the ground, we're the ones that have to push these politicians into pretty much doing their jobs.
Yeah, I want to turn in a moment to one of the things you're about to start to do to use this window. But why do you think it is that some of these politicians aren't doing more with their time? Are they afraid of being seen as being anti-corporate? Are they too disconnected from the movement to even understand where they could be a part of it that would be helpful? Why aren't we seeing them actually going out there and engaging with the movement more?
Well, it's a number of things, you know. Yeah, there's a disconnect. Of course there is, and a lot of these politicians, we all know they got their hands tied with these corporations. They're taking money, they're taking perks, whatever little backdoor deals they're getting from these corporations. You know, that's the problem right there. They're using them as sponsors. They're donating to their campaigns. You know, Amazon is lobbying. They've been lobbying in DC ever since we left the White House. So all of these things are taking place, you know, and it's not including workers. Workers are not included in these conversations, and that's the problem that we're having. You know, we have to put an end to that, and we have to call it out every time we see it or every time we hear about it. You know, we have to call it out so that the public know that these corporations are buying off politicians, and it's not a good thing.
I agree. Yeah, can't be reminded enough. Well, we're right on the precipice of Labor Day, and apparently it's going to be a hot one. Hot Labor Day, summer march. You want to tell us about the event?
Oh yeah, definitely. We trying to bring back the real fire and labor in New York City, especially for Labor Day. You know, I love the fact that you know, everybody's showing up, from Starbucks workers, Trader Joe's, the fashion industry, you know, different industries from across the country are flying in and traveling in ever since we went public with it. And I'm just, you know, proud of the Amazon Labor Union for being a catalyst for all of this, as far as buzzing, as far as the Labor Day and hot labor summer. So New York City, we're gonna We're gonna march with some billionaires. On Labor Day, we're gonna start at Howard Schultz, Sergeant Schultz, and then we're gonna march to Jeff Bezos, which we've been several times. We've done that in the last few years, and then we're gonna end off in Times Square, the heart of capitalism. Have some really good speakers there, really powerful stories from workers from all across the country, and some prominent people will be in attendance as well.
Okay, I love to see it. I wish I could be there, but no, I love that you're keeping the spotlight on this. That people know that this is something they can get involved in. Like a lot of people, maybe they feel like there's big barriers to it, but we've seen these movements start and have success. It doesn't take necessarily that long. And there's people who can help. I know you have been involved in helping workers at a lot of different corporations with this, and having leaders like that is so important to let people know that this is not just something that they got to read about in the news, that they can get involved in. It can come to a corporation that they're at. And so, all the credit in the world to you and the people you work with and the work that you do, Chris. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, appreciate that. And yeah, the fight continues. Solidarity forever. Appreciate it.
And of course, that event that Chris talked about is coming up in just the next couple of days, so be on the lookout for that. With that said, we do have to go to another break. We'll be back with more news after this. Okay, everybody. So a little behind the scenes info. Jayar, I want you to let me know if you prefer the D block or the E block, because time is gonna be tight coming out of this break. So you choose, okay? Mm-hmm. Let's see. Cooper Munger has been a member for 19 months over on YouTube, says, using my milestone chat to say that Lindsey Graham reminds me of Little Gideon from Gravity Falls. I'm not familiar with Gravity Falls, I'm sorry. But I like the reference. Tiger says in a super chat, hey John, it's been a while since I've watched live. I got a new job that's in the afternoon. I just clocked out to come watch a show and calm down because I was just called the N-word by a customer. Jesus, what job is this? Sorry to hear that. I'm glad you're able to watch live. Hopefully we can distract you from that, because that's terrible. Starry-Eyed Dragon's been a member for 21 months at tier 2, says, wow, it's been 18 months. And on Big News Wednesday, I love you both. This month has been a roller coaster. Thank you for being here for me. I love you, JR. Any good candy lately?
It's all the basics, you gotta have this around the Sour Patches and the Twizzlers. That's just what's in studio. I think I've kind of chilled on it, especially since I had the little stomach issue happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Also, you have to take care of yourself, you guys. Be safe. Watch what you put in your body.
Exactly.
I had a veggie burger last night. I was very disappointed in myself.
I'm even more disappointed in you. I had some Sour Patch grape recently, and they were pretty good. I like it. Not all the Sour Patch versions are amazing, and the watermelon's the best candy that's ever been made. But the grape was good. It was good. Jared, have you decided?
Try the cherry.
I think the cherry might be a little bit too tart for me. I think I have had it. Okay. It was good. I'll eat it. I'll eat literally every bit of it. I will sit down and eat literally the whole thing all at once. But it's too tart. Did you choose D block or E block?
Oh, I'm going E.
Okay, so we're gonna go to the E block. That's how we're gonna close out this hour. Time is just a little bit short. Okay, let's see. Over on Twitch, Ukami says deplorables. After Clinton labeled the right that, they decided to grab it up and embrace them. Why won't they look at themselves and embrace the fascist label too? It's totally true. Well, I mean, sort of secondhand they have. They're anti-Antifa. I'm not great at math or anything, but I mean, they've sort of labeled themselves that. Miss Scorpe Z says John does the best Lindsey Graham ever. Thank you. I don't want to do it. I feel bad. It's a regional accent. It's one thing to make fun of Trump for sounding like Trump, but I don't want to do a regional thing.
Oh, they're getting you too, huh, John? Someone told me I got to stop with my Southern accent. I only do it when I talk about Alabama, though.
Oh, sure.
Sorry, you guys. No,
nobody said anything. It's just I already feel like I probably shouldn't.
John is preemptively criticizing himself.
Exactly. Yeah, I can feel it coming. Arland 2 has been with us for 23 months on Twitch. Says morning dragons, morning Arland. Lunar Dragonfly has been here for 9 months. Says 9 months of Bezos bucks on top of TYT.com membership since 2016. Much love to the Dragon Squad. That's awesome. So many people joined up in 2015 or 2016. That was really a big year for American politics, particularly on the left. Someday we'll have a year that's bigger. Stay tuned. But anyway, Ozal here for 27 months says I've been here forever, or at least 27 months of forever, but that's quite a while. Dragonpool says John just told us that Jessica is getting a show. That is not what I said. That's not what I said. But anyway, okay, no, that's not actually what I'm saying. I want to be very clear about that. Okay, we got 19 seconds. LA Silver Surfers sent in a super chat saying, "All hail Lord Trump, clown Jesus, the orange MAGA Messiah." I can't tell if that's honest or not. I think it's sarcastic. I'm gonna give you that credit, LA. Thank you for the super chat. I do appreciate it. Okay, with that, we got more news to get to, so don't go anywhere. Okay, let's jump
John,
into
you
this.
messed up. Everybody go bomb Burbank's page and tell her that John is pronouncing her new show.
Oh my God, it's gonna. You're causing so much trouble for me. It isn't true. Anyway, it isn't true. They were considering it, but I gave the thumbs down. And if one person vetoes it, it ain't happening. This is like Rome, and I am Commodus. Anyway, okay, let's talk about some news. When we talk about politicians that are encouraging political violence, it's because we fear what people will actually do. And the one step that comes before actually acting on it is the threats, and the threats are coming. You're seeing Representative Eric Swalwell, a staffer for the representative, fielded a phone call that was as threatening as you can imagine. They said that an unidentified man went on a rant regarding gay issues using homophobic slurs a number of times and asked for Swalwell's current location, which thankfully the intern didn't know, so couldn't provide. I'm kidding, no, that's crazy. But they thought, I'm gonna call up an office, I'm gonna use all these slurs, threaten to kill a guy, and then ask for his location, you're gonna give it to me, and then I'm gonna go kill him. Absolute madness. But he put out a statement about this as well, saying a staffer of mine who's 1 month into her job received a call from a man saying he's coming to her office with an assault rifle to kill me. I hesitate to share this, but how else do I tell you we're in violent times? And the architects are Trump and McCarthy. Bloodshed is coming. And you can see if we bring up this next thing, they're gonna have a bit of a transcript from it. It was incredibly violent, and it's not the first time. It ain't gonna be the last. He got a message just 2 weeks ago, a racist, homophobic voicemail from a Trump supporter who vocally supported the mutilation and beheading of Swalwell, his wife, and his family. That is according to TMZ. So look, this is why we're against them encouraging this, talking about riots in the streets, talking about people needing to do something. All too often, this is what they choose to do.
That's the only answer left. They talk about the violence of the left and the anger, and look how they don't let you even have your freedoms and speak. Oh, how Christian they are as well. These are the Christian folks. These are the folks who follow God, who follow Jesus, and the love and the positivities of his teachings, right? To resort immediately to violence, resort immediately to saying you're gonna come kill someone, behead them, mutilate them, because that's what Jesus would want, right? Or then you have people like Lindsey Graham, which he's gonna keep getting over and over and over again, despite how much he wants to halfway backpedal about it. He's pushing this same thing over and over and over again. We saw what happened with January 6th. If you think it was something that you wanna blame on someone else because it was so bad, why do you keep saying the same types of things yet again?
Yeah.
I think they think the game is gonna keep going that way, and they can keep blaming it on Antifa and BLM. But then say riots are gonna be in the streets if you do anything to offend Republicans. How does that work? You're calling your supporters rioters and violent political activists. That's just what they are. I didn't say it, you said
it. They said it, yeah. When we talk about like, we spent, feels like forever saying, Joe Biden, cancel student debt. We didn't often say, or else we're gonna burn this place down. And not even like, I don't even support it, but like, I know what these lefties are like. If you don't cancel student loan debt, they're gonna burn the entire country. We would never, ever say that because we know our side, we know who they are, and we know who they're not. And they're not that. But they know their side. They know how violent it is, and they know that they can stoke that fire a little bit and for their own purposes.
And they also know. Go ahead, go.
Continue.
No, they also know that no matter what, libs, progressives, whatever, Democrats, they're also Americans too. And yes, guns are being compiled all over the place. And when these conflicts and these confrontations happen, there'll be response. We've seen it. Some folks, again, that's why they push Antifa so hard, because they're standing there armed many times and they're not taking it. So then you go for, look at these violent folks that you created this scenario. Either we mow through and kill you all, or you push back and we call you violent. That's the plan here. We already know that.
Yeah, exactly. And look, it's not lost to me the fact that the dude was deciding to use homophobic slurs. We know what motivates these people. I mean, sure, it's ideological. They hate libs or commies or socialists or whatever they think Eric Swalwell of all people is. But we also know they are violently homophobic, and that has become a bigger and bigger part of right-wing thought. And so, thankfully, this guy hopefully will be tracked down. Hopefully, he'll be stopped. Hopefully, the next one will be too. Let's stay tuned. Okay, with that, unfortunately, that is all the time we have for our first hour of our show. Thank you, everyone in the audience. There's more to come, though, in the aftermath, including airdropped nudes, Truth Social's new issues, and they are piling up, as well as maybe the worst news for the American people that I've seen in some time. We'll get into all that and more after this. Welcome to the aftermath, everyone. Lots of news to get to, but we want to jump into a couple of your comments, including Bernie the Kiwi Dragon, who says a slug has more backbone than Graham. And Jorge says, do the whole show in Lindsay accent, please. I'm not going to, thank you. I do appreciate that. Let's see. Jonathan Toten's been a member for 17 months, says, I know I have a heart because John just broke it. RIP John's TYT bomber jacket. Thank you.
It's got mayonnaise on it right now. I'm sorry, no, it was marinara.
Probably honey mustard. Punk on a Bike says, no such thing as a semi-fascist, just like there's no such thing as a semi-Nazi. Yeah, he's Nazi-ish, you know? Yeah. Anyway, let's see. Sailor Digurin sent in a super chat with a good question. Why are we getting pre-taped and already aired interviews during live commentary shows now? You keep skipping blocks, so we know there's enough news. That's a perfectly fine question to ask. First of all, we've only done it twice. We're not having an intention of doing it regularly. Because I want people to see the Chris Smalls interview. I know that our live audience probably doesn't go to the channel and browse clips because they've watched the show, but not everything ends up on the show. So they're missing out on some interviews that I think it's important that people see. And if that means that it crowds out one story, then that's sometimes a bargain that I'm willing to make. But thank you for the super chat, I do appreciate it. Okay, with that, we have lots to talk about. So why don't we jump into this next block? Truth Social has yet more issues, and no, I'm not referring to the fact that apparently yesterday Trump woke up and went on a 60-post QAnon-fueled social media spree. Literally dozens and dozens and dozens of posts and retweets of utter madness. And not just stuff that's out and out Q stuff, not references that are sort of veiled. It's just Q conspiracy theories, and not just claiming that he should be made president immediately, but literally like memes of Joe Biden pooping himself, like a photo of Joe Biden who had pooped himself in the photo. That's what the former most powerful man in the world is tweeting. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is that it desperately needs viewers, and it's gonna be hard for them to get them when they're not available on like some of the biggest platforms, including on Android. I have Android, I can't get on Truth Social, I also don't want to. They're currently blocked on Google Play, and it's because their failure to meet Google's content moderation standards. The main issue appears to be violent threats that, in the words of Uprock, somehow keep popping up on the platform. And why wouldn't they? That's what the platform is about. The whole point is that it's not supposed to be moderated, except of course, as we've often noted, that you're not allowed to criticize the platform or Donald Trump. It's free speech, except Trump is a snowflake, so you can't criticize him. But other than that, they don't want to moderate violence, racism, anti-Semitism, so they don't. And according to Axios, because they're failing to moderate these threats, at the very least, even label them as sensitive content, Google is not going to approve them. And that means many, many, many devices that run Android, you can't get Truth Social, and that is severely handicapping the growth of their user base, Jayar.
Really weird how you can't just spot violence. These gatekeepers are out of control. These tech giants keep keeping us from spotting as much violent, racist, bigoted language as possible. What's wrong with people nowadays? Where's my freedom of speech? Bro, you can go on any street corner with your bullhorn and your script and shout all you want. I mean, maybe most corners, because eventually the police may be called on you as you shout violent at folks. Because again, as we're pointing out here, that's exactly what we're seeing. They left Twitter and said, or at least got kicked off of Twitter and the Instagrams and the YouTubes of the world, and said, I can't believe they're censoring me. What's going on with this country? Then they go on and do stuff like this. Do they really think people are buying it still? Even the folks who somehow thought they had some kind of honesty here. You leave a site or get kicked off a site because of your rhetoric. Then you go and you can't get any traction with your new site because of your rhetoric. The common denominator here is you and your rhetoric. Again, shout it all you want from the, go have press conferences, go put cameras in front of you and have all the tweets you want verbally, Donald Trump. And then people will still hate you because that's what you spew. I don't know why they think they deserve anything else but this.
Yeah, look, I'm sure that he's happy that he's at least got some people who are now retruthing him, but it obviously isn't the same. He can't engage with the sort of people that he wants to. He can't immediately point them at his political opponents. He has to send them literally to a different platform. That's not going to be as satisfying. But while that is an emotional problem for Donald Trump and Truth Social, it's not the biggest ones. They were recently denied a trademark application. They reportedly owe $1.6 million to a web hosting company after it stopped making monthly payments. They literally don't want to pay their vendors. You cannot run a site like this, but that's what they're trying to do. They've apparently lost over $6 million in the first half of this year, haven't generated any revenue because how would they? Maybe selling red hats, I don't know. But they do, as of right now, have a trust that holds $293 million. Now, are they going to want to burn through that month after month after month? I don't know. But it bothers me that with a terrible business plan, you could have predicted, by the way, that they wouldn't be able to get on these platforms. They were still able to get hundreds of millions of dollars in funding, JR. That bothers me.
Yeah, you know what? I was just thinking, you said you could have predicted this. And it leads right to the thought I was having. Devin Nunes was a US congressman. My man left his job to help sink this sinking ship. It was sinking before he jumped on it. The idea was halfway sunk when it was even promoted. And he went, you know what I'm gonna do? The band is going down with the ship. The captain is saluting and he's sinking. And I said, let me stand next to him. You leave your job to go and sink a sinking ship, bro. It really illustrates just how much maybe he hated that job, or also how much he knew he wasn't gonna last very much longer in that job. And he saw that cash cow of several million dollars. And he's like, maybe they'll give me some and I can retire off of this and go off into the sunset. I don't know what the plan is.
He's got more money than me. Maybe it was a good plan. But anyway, Truth Social, the trials and tribulations of Truth Social continue. And they're not the only ones with trials and tribulations. Turns out America's got some issues we need to touch base with. So let's jump into this next topic. It can be difficult to determine exactly what it means for a society to be succeeding or failing. What should a society or a government be providing? Should we be looking at happiness, GDP? But I think one thing that's pretty safe to focus on is literally how much life do people have? Are they living long lives, or are their lives constrained? And unfortunately for America, the numbers are not looking good. The average life expectancy for Americans fell in both 2020 and now in 2021, the sharpest 2-year decline in almost a century. So back in 2021, the average American could expect to live until the age of 76. In just the last 3 years, that estimate has dropped by 3 years. That is not the direction you want to be going in, and it certainly isn't the rate you want to be traveling in that direction. Now, why this happened is complex, and thus solving it will be complex. Obviously, the pandemic is a big part of it, but in addition to that, there's a rise in accidental deaths, drug overdoses, deaths from heart disease, chronic liver disease, cirrhosis as well. So a combination of the ongoing public health crisis, as well as a number of preventable illnesses, are drastically reducing American life expectancy. And look, everywhere around the world was hard hit during the pandemic. We know that, and that's gonna have an effect in these numbers. And so it did in 2020. But actually, by 2021, many advanced countries, wealthy countries like America, had recovered. And in part, that's because they actually cared about stopping the spread of COVID. There was vaccination and masking and social distancing and all that. But here in America, we did not prioritize that nearly enough. And so over 1 million Americans have already died. More died in 2021 than in 2020, despite the fact that vaccines were widely available at that point. And even now, a couple years into the pandemic, only 2/3 of Americans are fully vaccinated. Only 1/3 have had a booster shot. And those numbers might fluctuate a little bit over time. In fact, a new booster shot was just approved today. But if after a year and a half of widespread availability of the booster shot, 1/3 have had it, we're not hitting 100%. We're probably not hitting 50% at this point. And is there any reason to believe that those life expectancy numbers won't continue to go down? What a failure of our society, a needless public health own goal, JR.
Yeah, you talked about some of those things that were happening, like with people's bodies and stuff. So the first thought could be, oh yeah, healthcare, which has always been a problem. But then of course it gets worse as more and more things just generally happen. But these added factors, we talk about happiness and sadness. I feel like sometimes people don't see, or we don't care. Who cares if Jim Bob down the street is happy, or then just generally our country, because we've had happiness stories and rates when it comes to one country versus another, and America's never very high on those things. When people aren't happy, when people aren't satisfied, when people aren't living their lives that we claim folks are living in America, that's why we're the shining example on the hill and we're the best country in the world has ever seen. For the majority of Americans, it's not that way. So people will self-medicate, they'll drink heavily, they'll do drugs as part of that self-medication. They don't know really what's wrong with them. Maybe they are dealing with some depression issues. Maybe they have had some kind of accidents, as you saw as well there too. Then that leads to other pain medications. Nothing gets people off of this downward trend, especially when there's a lack of housing, there's lack of good paying jobs. People are in so much debt based off of things that they thought they could then take to get to that American dream that was promised that whole time. They were sold a false bill of goods. And then afterwards, there's bad marriages, issues with your kids. All this stuff happens that many conservatives complain about, but they always ignore the causes for these things. So yeah, people were locked up in their houses during COVID and people developed more depressive issues. People were distant. People don't even know how to really reintegrate with society many times, and all that they're concerned about. But they don't care about how it was then extended or at least ignored for so long that things got even worse. So do they really care about it, or do they just care about complaining about it? It's the same thing over and over again.
Yeah. Well, if your concern is people caring about this and doing something about it, I've got good news and bad news on that score. So something that might make you think, hey, we will take this seriously, and then something that works in the opposite direction. So in terms of maybe people will take this seriously, like people in power, Republicans, here's the good news in terms of getting them invested. The white population did worse in 2021 than communities of color, besides Native American, Alaskan natives. So this is affecting white people. That means you gotta take it seriously, right? Come on, America. It's affecting the good ones. But the issue is that, but why is it affecting them? Well, because communities of color took the pandemic far more seriously, despite the fact that often were hit hard. Once vaccination and masking and all that was available, they took it more seriously. White people were convinced that to be a good patriotic American, you had to willingly die of a respiratory infection. And they took that to heart. Literally, it got in their hearts. It was bad. And so will they take it seriously in that case? Probably not so much. Will they do stuff about the sort of the chronic illnesses that lead to so much death that are related to diet? Well, they've been convinced that taking diet seriously or making any changes is some sort of hippie commie plot. So probably not gonna take that too seriously. It's really an issue when you're convinced by the people that you admire, the people you love and respect, that you should die sooner. That's hard to fight against, because me telling them to be healthier clearly hasn't worked because I've done it thousands of times over the past 2 years. But these numbers, man, these numbers are really something.
Yeah, Burbank and I were talking yesterday about how the people who are fighting, so many people that want us better principles and better agenda for Americans, they're literally fighting people saying, I want your life to get better. I want you to have a better paying job. I want you to have an opportunity to own a home. I want you to have better health care. And they go, how could you? And they've convinced enough people to hate folks that are looking to make your lives better and pressure politicians to do so. That's the fight amongst regular Americans.
Yeah, I don't understand it. I don't understand it. And the more they're told to die, the more they love the people telling them to die. I don't get it. Okay, with this, we're gonna move on to another topic in just a moment. Want to read a couple of your comments though. Thank you to all of you sending in super chats, including Early Bird. Hey, Early Bird says, geez, don't the semi-fuzz dehumanize us by calling us Antifa, pot beat kettle? I think you got him right there. RC Chick says, lots of people stay in poop marriages for reasons. Hers is clearly money. I wonder how many public figures have wives who leech off the name they married. Hey, there are men who are leeches too, let's be fair. But yeah, oh, and by the way, whenever we do one of these stories that hints at a distance between them, I wanna be very clear that I'm not falling into the trap of, and thus she's different and it's good that she doesn't love, she's still bad. She's still really, really bad. I mean, let's be clear about that. She doesn't like Trump, and that's literally the only good part of her. The rest of it's terrible. Okay, with that, let's move into one of the more ridiculous stories we've talked about in a while, starting with this.
So I'll tell you what's going down.
You know who I am.
They told me you were VIP. All connected to the government.
What kind of a moron forgets to pick up his laptop at a repair shop? You're a Biden. Act like one. Everything he built, his life, I just ruined it all. I want to know everything that's on that laptop that can ruin my erection.
So do you have your tickets bought already? I pre-ordered them 6 months ago for My Son Hunter, the Breitbart produced Hunter Biden movie. It looks great. And right there was better acting than you'll see in the movie. It doesn't look great. I was acting there. No, it looks terrible. It's just the performances are going to be awful. Why is Gina Carano in it to begin with? Why are they working so hard to make Hunter Biden look cool? I don't know. Maybe we'll get answers to these questions in the clip. But while a lot of people have been very mean to this movie and mocked it and said that it's going to be bad, there are those who like it. And it's getting attention not just in the US, but internationally. For instance, Russian state media propagandists are aggressively promoting the film. Numerous Russian state television programs have broadcast the trailer in its entirety. The trailer, of course, hints at drug abuse, which apparently is founded in truth, and allegations of illegal activity by Hunter Biden and attempts to draw connections to the president. You can see in those scenes them implying that they're having these illicit conversations based on absolutely nothing. So let's give you examples. One Russian state media show host, who is also a deputy of the State Duma, Yevgeny Popov, said Republicans produced the scandalous film because they got tired of waiting for justice. Yes, this is produced to get justice. That's what it's about. He suggested the film was intended to help Republicans during the midterm elections, which might be true, and called the laptop former President Donald Trump's main trump card. Co-host Olga Skabiva said, "We're waiting for the premiere and hoping for a big success in the US to bring our beloved Trump back into power." Trump might well end up back in power. I do worry about that. But I don't think it's gonna be my son Hunter, JR. What do you think?
This is crazy, bro. Listen, this is nothing more than an illustration of what they think politics and reality is. It's based in fakeness. That's why they have this weird obsession with those Hollywood elites, Rambo movies and whatever hell else that they've made, that they think now that's swayed people to think that's reality. People understand that movies, I mean, I'm willing to admit if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong here. I assume people understand that movies are fake. That as they're making these fictional movies, that they're fake and it's an escape from reality. They've gone so far with their fake reality when it comes to politics, like let's just make movies. And it doesn't matter if it's real or not, doesn't matter how much we embellish on the facts, no matter how much we have these inserted lines that we imagined and fantasized about, people are gonna take it as real. Because they've lied to their base so much, and their base has responded the way that they would like for them to take all of this fake reality and place it with what their lives are. January 6th, COVID stuff, everything that they've lied to them about that they ate up, they're like, oh my God, all we have to do is make a movie now. And they'll buy that too. They'll take that over the reality. They'll probably make a movie about this whole thing with the document stuff at Mar-a-Lago, and they'll say, you know what? In reality, there was nothing there. And instead of seeing the actual pictures and seeing what Trump has actually said about it, they'll go, but we made a movie though. But we made a movie. You know what? It actually might work.
Yeah, well, it might work because the right is just desperate for all the things that they criticize and attack. They say that they hate Hollywood and all that stuff. It's they don't like what Hollywood makes, maybe. They wish they had it. They want big movies and stars. They desperately want stars. Trump wants it more than anything else. All the right-wing commentators desperately want to be actors and musicians. I mean, look at Tim Pool humiliating himself with that emo song or whatever. They just want to be popular and loved. But I don't think this is it. I don't think Gina Carano's it.
As long as you're not a complete a-hole, you have a better chance of people liking you.
That's too high of a bar. That's too high of a bar, JR. Give him something simpler. Come on, a stepping stone. Anyway, with that, I want to make sure that we end on a light note. It's been a big day of news. That life expectancy thing was rough. So let's lighten things up, starting with this.
He's doing that. So here's the deal. This continues while we're on the ground. I'm going to have to pull back to the gate. Everybody's going to have to get off. We're going to have to get security involved. And it's vacation that's going to be ruined. So you folks, whatever that airdrop thing is, quit sending naked pictures. Let's get yourself to Cabo.
I've been on a lot of flights. I've heard a lot of announcements by pilots. Nudes have never come up. Stay tuned. I mean, maybe someday. That was a Southwest Airlines flight, a flight to Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. And apparently, so many people were airdropping the pilot nudes that he felt the need to make a big deal out of it, knowing, I'm sure on some level, that the second he mentions that he has an open, easy to access airdrop, there's gonna be way more dongs getting sent to him. But he had to do something, and so he acted, JR.
Why do you assume there's dongs being sent to him? Maybe there's women sending nudes as well. Just saying.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Probably not.
But also, I'm not the Apple guy, and I know how airdrop generally works. But once you know you're getting a bunch of it, can't you cut it off? I thought. I mean, maybe there's an option within the Apple
use
community?
the term "cut it off" with what we're talking about, but you mean restrict access.
That too, I guess. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. I think like some guy is just like, hey, that account was called Cockpit. What do you want? I'm spreading the heart. But anyway, some people are saying he should have just turned around. I don't think he's allowed to do that. You can totally restrict access, but maybe he's older. Maybe he doesn't have the technical like capacity or whatever. Mr. Unknown says he was flexing. Like this is his way of being like, oh, I don't know if you know, but people send me nudes all the time. It's that arrogant pilot thing.
Let's keep it real. Announcing that you're getting nudes and you don't want any more is gonna get you more nudes.
Exactly. Oh God. There was probably a line to get into the bathroom to do makeshift photography that stretched the length of the plane. Anyway.
There's like there's a frat going to Cabo and they're like,
exactly. By the way, we're joking, but don't do this. Yeah. You can't send people non-consensual nudes, even if it's a guy, even if it's a pilot. I don't know why I said that. What does that mean? But don't send people nudes that they didn't ask for. Don't generally send people nudes regardless, because you can't trust them. No, really. Like Alex Jones sent those nudes to Roger Stone, and then everybody found out about it. You just can't trust people anymore.
Not anymore. Not these days.
Not these days. Not these days. It was different when I was in elementary school. Anyway, with that said, JR, that is all the time we have for Big News Wednesday. I want to thank you for doing double duty as always. Thank you for joining us.
Maybe one day we'll have you on Watchlist, John. Maybe one day.
I actually heard. Oh, you were told?
I just heard a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I've never been asked. That's all I'm saying. I see Jessica Burbank. You got Yaz. You got Ben Glebe. Dan Evans. No John. No John.
Okay.
We'll see. Okay. I'll be watching. Anyway, with that said, I'm gonna be joining Anna Kasparian on the first hour of the the second hour of the Young Turks and the bonus episode. You get me for 90 minutes. So everyone definitely stay tuned for that. Lots more still to come this week on the Damage Report. I want to thank you all for joining me. Indisputable's up next, but for now, stay safe out there, stay sane out there. I'll see you soon.